on, and then I'll take you through a tour of this BCW box. This has, of course, this is a box for comics, and it's a pretty tough plastic. Protect, store, and display. That's what you use it for. I will say though that when you add a lot of comics inside it, then it is going to get quite heavy. So when it starts to get heavy, that means you're not going to be able to move it as easily. So if you have this stored in your closet, then I can tell you for sure that this box is not going to be coming out as often. It is, you can still do it, but it's not as easy as just pulling out comics. But the good thing is that because of its material, it's pretty solid, and it has these little peg like extensions over here, so that if you wanted to stack more boxes on top of each other, you will be able to stack them. I've had this for at least a few years, maybe 3 years, maybe I think more than that. And so far, I think the performance is pretty good. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and take you through a tour, because as you know, I buy a lot of comics as well. I collect them. People sometimes want to know, hey, what sort of titles are you doing? Is it the current ones? Are they the older ones? They are a combination. I will tell you that from the mainstream comic books, I am not purchasing any of the mainstream titles. So I've always been a DC fan, and I do not buy any of their titles anymore. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, none of those. I used to buy Catwoman for some time. Gone, finish. Marvel, I had never really bought frequently, but there have been some storylines that I had, some older 90s version storylines that I had attempted to complete. So those books I would buy, and I would also purchase maybe some of the graphic novels. Some, not many, but it's mostly been DC for me. But I can tell you for now that I'm practically, if not completely, off DC and no Marvel. What I am doing now is buying some of those alternative publishers. So I am buying characters like the Thundercats, the 90s, the Saturday morning Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh, actually, you know what? I should correct myself. There is just one DC title that I am buying, and that is DC World's Finest. That is the Superman Batman combination. Those are the titles. In fact, that's the only DC title that I'm still buying, only because it has multiple stories. So I go ahead and buy that. But I'm still iffy on it. I may not buy it eventually, because it's not something that I'm finding a lot of interest in. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic books are easy read. The stories are not particularly complex. Understand that they are the Saturday or the TV cartoon version back in the 80s or the 90s. They're those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's not the one I'm buying. So let me just take you through a walkthrough of how this box is basically. So this is how it opens up. You've got those clips over here that just locks it in place. So there's a little bit of a tab that comes out, and then you lock it. But let me remove these are the comic covers right over here. So this okay, so I'm gonna have to do something. I'm gonna have to twist this around because it's the other way, and as you can see, it is a little bit of a, it's not very heavy, but it's not very light either. I would say maybe 15 pounds. So let me just take you through some of the question was around current or older titles. So in the back, I do have some of the older titles that I've tried to complete. So this is the Man of Steel title that I had first read in the early 90s. I only had, I think, 1 or 2 issues of this, but now I have the complete series. I think the complete series. And then we go on to some of the it starts off old, and then that comes closer. As we move towards this side of the box, they are the newer titles. The old Action Comics is something that I only purchased recently because honestly, I think some of the covers of some of these older action titles are really good. This one is actually I want to say probably 70s or late 80s. I'm gonna have to open it to check the year on it. It does say number 535, so we know for sure that it's actually an old title. This is John Burns, so 1987. This one is actually an issue from 1987. So as we're gonna start to move this way, the issues are gonna get newer. This is something that I had read somewhere in the early 90s. I think we were living in Nigeria, and this was in the hands of one of my school friends, and the cover really was very curious. I was like, why is somebody holding Superman like that? And of course, the story is a little different on the inside, but it's a very nice cover. I might take you to the inside of the books as well, but here, take a look at this one. Okay. Sorry about the glare, but then we've got Big Barda. This I had seen ads of this issue in some of the older comic books, so I was always curious, what is this about? So it's actually a rather controversial story, but anyways, Gangbuster and Guardian, I think that's what his name is. Let's just keep moving forward. This is when Superman goes in space and then basically finds the what's it, the Eradicator. This is when he comes back. So this is a very iconic cover. You'll see this style in in many places online and in stores. But this is a very well drawn cover. So we're coming closer and closer now. We're about to enter into the early 90s. This is the introduction of Maximum. This is when Brainiac. This is actually a very nice storyline. If there's one storyline you want to read on the Brainiac trilogy part, this was a very interesting storyline, and of course the artwork was very good as well. Metallo. There's the Brainiac trilogy. This is actually an issue that I've had since way back in the 90s. You can see it's all torn up. Okay. But I kept it. I brought it from my home country because I needed to, trace the issue numbers. This is also an interesting one. It says I would call these kind of like the sideline stories because they're focused on some side characters. Jimmy Olsen. All right, let's get into some of the more recent purchases. So, of course, with the passage of time, these are the versions that you probably wouldn't see everywhere. So you kind of have to go to a comic book store to find these issues. Maxima returns. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, Superman. This is the Red Kryptonite storyline. Crisis of the Crimson Kryptonite. So actually, Superman is under this illusion that his powers have been taken away, but it was actually a magic that caused him, and this is when he comes back all prepared. And of course, and the villain in the story is Luthor. So Lex, and this is when Superman gets his power back and he returns to his regular form. And this is where this is where the triangle numbers start to begin. How nice. This is where the triangle numbers begin. So 1991, triangle number 1, issue number 51 of Superman, the Menace of the Mysterious Mr. Z. Well, he was a one-time villain, I think. This issue, it's in tatters. I'm trying to find a fresh version of this or a good quality version. I've not been able to find it. I'm going to keep looking for it, but I would certainly like to get this issue number 661. Only reason being that this one's really in poor condition, and I just want a better quality version. This gives you a little bit of the 90s Marvel vibes, big weapons. I wouldn't be surprised if DC just took a character right out of X-Men Cable. He's got the cybernetic eye, he's got the big guns, he's got the pouches and everything. I have a strong feeling that this character was taken straight out of Cable from the X-Men. And that was not unusual for publishers to... yes, I do have Batman as well. And I'll get into that. Now, mind you, my collection is sort of spread across multiple places, but I'm just going through this box because these boxes tend to be quite heavy. It's not easy to take them out. This was an interesting storyline. Blackout, Superman loses his memory, and then he ends up in a dinosaur island, and then he's about to marry this local. Some of the Superman annuals are also here. Um, Another annual. This is a little bit of a controversial. Was it a controversial? No, this was not as much of a controversial story, but I think they just wanted to sell based on the potential relationship between Superman and Maxima, which never really occurred. Now we're getting into the. Still, we're in the early 90s, though. This is 1992. I have a feeling. Yeah, the triangle numbers are still there. 1990s was in Beyond was all triangle numbers. John Bogdanov, this is the guy who made these covers. Interestingly, I didn't like his stuff early because I felt his art was super weird. But I can tell you now that I'm one of his greatest fans. He makes a Superman extremely bulky for that time. Anyways, Dan Jurgens is still a DC regular, and you might be surprised that I actually do not like his art too much. Tom Grummett was really good during his peak days at least, but he was really good. We're not going to go through all of them one by one. I just wanted to show you some of the older ones because this box will not have the current ones. Let me just show you. Okay, so now we're running into some side comics. This is the last current version, and then I stopped buying Superman. I just could not digest the stuff that they were making. So that's that section over there. I've got more Superman comics in my other boxes, so I'm not going to go through that right now. Let me just show you what some of this other stuff is. So we have some alternative stuff. So I've got Street Fighter, Legends. These are just some one-offs. Okay, I don't even know if I can find them in comic book stores anymore. So Street Fighter, the reason I went into this because some of the anime art was really nice. Anime art or manga art is something that I really like a lot. Let's not worry about Red Sonja and Sheena for now. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, yes, there is a couple of interesting ones. So, for example, Spawn's universe. This is actually not too old. It's pretty recent. This is where Spawn releases his Spawn universe. Sorry, Image Comics McFarlane releases his Spawn universe. So it's like variants of Spawn, which is a kind of a nice concept. Now these ones are relatively newer. Superman 78. These issues were released, I think, a year or two ago. I'm not sure. They were not bad. I think the art was okay. I just bought it for its nostalgia factor. But the story was okay. Yeah, it was fine. Nothing extraordinary. This is more of the Christopher Reeve Superman. So there's that. And then, of course, they came up with a second series of Superman 78. And that was called the Metal Curtain. So again, in this case, the villain or the enemy is Russia. I guess in 78, the Russian factor was a big influence on mainstream media and entertainment of that time. This story was okay. I wouldn't say it was amazing. But would I recommend that you read Superman 78? Yes. Now, this is the only current DC title that I'm buying. I'm able to get through it. I don't really look forward to it, honestly. But the reason I buy it is because they do feature multiple DC stories. So it's a little bit like those old, back in the time, I think was it the 70s or the 60s? I mean, I was not there during that time. But I did see some of those smaller comic book style books that had multiple DC characters, multiple stories. This is what the world's finest offers, and this is why I'm still buying it. I'm tolerating it. I'm keeping up with it. But anyways, let's see. I just don't know if I want to continue it. That's all. That's really it. Okay, this is just a little bit of a sort of a separator I created over here. So let me just show you some of the other alternatives. Superman Lost was one of the most boring stories I had ever read. I was not impressed. I was super bored. I think by issue 2 I was like, where is this going? So, and I'm a little bit of an idiot. I want to sort of complete the series, so I had to buy 10 issues of Superman Lost, which was a complete waste of time, and a waste of time, and a waste of time. So please, my suggestion is don't bother with Superman Lost because it is totally boring. And this is, you could tell that this is where I was getting really peeved off with DC, because I was like, this is a story, this. Okay, now this is something interesting. This is the Saturday Morning Adventures that's being released by IDW. This is, in fact, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the 90s or the 80s TV show. All right, so the art is that style as well. I'm still currently buying it. This is like an easy read sort of books. Do not expect some crazy stories, some super, they're just light stories, light read, right? Of course, you'll get them in multiple cover variants as well. And oh, this was something interesting. Did I wait? So I don't know. Wait, hold on a second. Where are we? Before I jump off Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I do want to share one more thing. I picked up very randomly. I picked up some old Donald Duck comic books. These were released, I think, in the early 80s or maybe later. But I was watching a show online on YouTube, and they were recommending that some of the Donald Duck series from a certain period of time were like landmark. So I was just curious what that was, both in terms of art and the personality. So I thought about, okay, maybe I'll just give it a shot. So it was interesting. So I did buy a few only just to get a feel of it. Not so much. Robotech, I was going to start this, but it just didn't. I think I couldn't find it anymore, so why I didn't bother continuing it. To be honest, I didn't even like the art in this one. Yeah, no, the art was not so great. That's okay. Saint Seiya. Now this is actually a good storyline, the Time Odyssey, but the one thing with this was that the font was so small. I almost felt like, am I losing my eyesight or something? But then no, the font, the reading font was so small that I couldn't believe that they had printed something with such small fonts. But this is an interesting storyline. The artwork is really good, and it's a very interesting take on Saint Seiya. Now this is actually a current storyline for me. The Dynamite Publishing, they just came out with the Thundercats. This is actually an interesting read. I'm also supportive of Rob Liefeld. He's an artist from my generation, not my generation, but the time when I was really, really into comic books. He did all that great stuff with the Deadpool and Cable, X-Force, to some X-Factor, was that his as well? He moved between DC. Did he? Yeah, he did do DC for some time. Hawk and Dove. Keeps moving between Deadpool, DC and Marvel. He does Deadpool. He's about to retire now, but I mean, he did some of these covers, so I wanted to support that. This I'm still reading, by the way. So these are actually pretty interesting stories, and naturally, when a title does well, they always come out with a spin-off. So then they came out with Chitara. So Chitara is also a spin-off that is currently running. It is okay. It is not bad. The Chitara series is not bad. It's still very recent. So if you're interested in starting from issue number 1, you should still be able to locate a couple of the number 1 issues in your stores. I think we're down to now issue number 4 or 5. Thundercats is, I think, all the way up. I think it's been up for almost a year now. So issue 9 and 10 are already out, I think. Yeah, issue 7. This is actually issues. No, I've got it up in my closet. Actually, I did buy some of the recent issues, so I have to read through some of those. But as you can see, this box is now pretty much full. I really won't be able to fill that much in there, and I'm trying to organize them according to certain titles and certain storylines. But I thought I'll share this with you. This is actually a box from. See, what is it? BCW. You should be able to find this on Amazon. It's available over there. But and what they also provide is a little cavity over here, so you can either insert a comic card or something that you would like to label your boxes with. I only have about 5 or 6 of these boxes, so I don't bother labeling them. At some point in time, maybe I will. but not for now. But yep, so this is my Saturday morning comic visit for you. I'm gonna keep. I've got, like I said, I've got many more boxes in my closet, so I'm gonna take them out one by one. Folks have been asking about alternative stories and books. If you wanted to start off something, I've only just recently started to go in some alternative titles because honestly, I'm really getting tired of some of the stuff that DC and Marvel is coming out with, some of the current stuff as well. And I know Absolute Power is apparently doing really good, which is cool. Good on them. Hopefully they'll succeed because it's a business and they need to pay salaries. So I support it in that sense, but I don't like some of the stories that they've come out with. So DC and Marvel is out. Alternative stuff is in. And for those who are interested, they actually also just came out with Silverhawks. So Silverhawks is out as well. It just came out, issue 1 and 2. I think issue 2 is out now. I'm not sure. But that is something that you can consider reading if you want to revisit some of those old titles. I think you'll have a good time enjoying reading those. Now, to close this box, pretty simple. You just slap this thing back on. Go a little bit like a zigzag. So hold on. I'm doing it with my left hand. I'm actually right-handed. Clip this piece in. This piece goes out, and it's like a locking mechanism. Now don't think that it's like super unbreakable, because you don't want to damage it. You can still break through that if you want to do, but at least it's secure and the doors are not flopping here and there. Okay. All right, so that's it. And as a bonus, I'll just show you one more thing just to wrap it all off. When I was in Abu Dhabi, there was a Warner Brothers store, so I was able to find a very nice Flintstones cushion. So this is really cool, and this is cool especially because you don't find Flintstones merchandise, at least in USA. I don't think I've seen that anywhere, but in Abu Dhabi, they actually had a Warner Brothers store, and they had tons and tons of Flintstone stuff, mugs and keychains and hand sanitizers. They had some clothing. They had these cushions. I don't think they had any bed sheets, but they were there. And well, that is pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you all next time.